hear people lamenting about not knowing how to get everything done often enough that I decided to record this video on the Fraction program created by the National Institute of Financial Education. How often do you say, "I don't have enough time"? The reality is we all have 24 hours in a day. The key is to figure out what to do with it. We choose how to spend our time, but unfortunately so many of us aren't making that choice consciously. If you find yourself saying you don't have time for things that are really important to you, then you need a plan to get those things done. With a big enough why, you will figure out the how, but you need to keep the why in view. I read this book, Time Management for Mortals, 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. And the first time I read it, I have to admit, I was a little frustrated and put it down, but I did revisit it. And it really is amazing from the standpoint that the basic premise is, given the average life expectancy, we are going to live 4,000 weeks. And that is a finite amount of time. And so deciding exactly what we want to do with that time is important. So it really makes you start thinking about prioritizing and, on some level, understanding that this whole crazy idea that we can somehow fit it all in is not going to happen. Which is why prioritizing is so important as part of your planning. If we don't have a plan for our lives, then life tends to happen to us instead of for us. We end up making a surviving instead of making a life. Think about who it's important to design your ideal life for, and make sure you put yourself at the top of that list. When you think about your ideal life, this is a brain dump. We'll prioritize later, but think about how you want it to be. I want it to be this way. I would do these things. I would have the following. As you're designing your life and deciding on your ideal lifestyle, it helps to break it down into categories. And you would use as many of these as are important to you. I have this list up here to start giving you an idea. You'll notice that the more things you put here, the more you get excited about the life you're going to live. Now, as you make that list, it's going to help you identify those things that are truly important to you and what you should be managing your time for. Notice the objections that might come up in your mind. They're critical and will often point to what's holding you back from your ideal life. You've heard before, doing the same thing and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. Well, one thing that's important here is to understand kind of how we learn. So, for instance, I can tell you, if you didn't know what this was, that it's a pen. That's giving you information. I can tell you what the pen does, and even show you by writing something what the pen does. And now that's moving information into more of a knowledge aspect. But the only way you're really truly going to start getting this is if you take a pen and write with it. And now you're turning that information and knowledge into wisdom, which is becoming your own understanding of how this works. So the key is to take action in order to grow. Knowing what to do amounts to nothing if you don't do it, which turns your action into understanding and starts to actually change your habits. So today I'm going to give you information and knowledge. That's all I can do. You have to take that, put it into action to get wisdom and turn that into your understanding. So now, as you've dumped everything of what you want your future to look like, now it's important to figure out where you are now. This is a bit of a treasure map that we're building. So we have X marks the spot of where we want to be, and we have to know our starting point to map out how we want to get there. So start by identifying your current strengths, your resources, your skills you have now. Then think about the obstacles in the way. Perhaps to really get to where you're going, there are new skill sets you need to acquire, or a new education, or something like that. Do you need to get other people on board? Newton had the law of inertia, and basically something in motion stays in motion, or something not in motion, something at rest, tends to stay at rest until acted upon. It's as important here to not only think about what you need to start doing, but also to look at what you are doing that you need to stop doing. Perhaps as you're looking at things and you're busy all the time, you can only fit in the things that are actually going to move you towards your goals if you stop doing some of those things that are keeping you busy. Richard Branson one time was asked how he would get so much done. And his suggestion was to brain dump everything in the world that you could ever possibly think are priorities to you, what you want to get done, what you have to get done, etc. Circle the top 5 most important. And then whatever you do, don't ever do anything else on that list. Now, that's a little bit utopian because I got to say, from my own perspective, cleaning the house would probably be one of those important things that needs to get done, but I wouldn't circle it, but I really do have to make sure I do it. So there's a little bit of that there. Obviously, there are things we have to fit into our lives, but we're only ever going to get those important things that lead us to our brighter future if we make sure they make it into our schedules. Most of us need an operating system for attention. Without it, we tend to prioritize urgent instead of important. A good attention management system will act as a compass and keep you on track to get from where you are now to your brighter future. Life is 1% vision and 99% alignment. Now, even though vision is only 1%, it's just as important, if not more so, than the other 99%. Because without vision, you have nothing to align with. The key is to have a powerful enough vision that you want to keep working towards it. How quickly you reach your brighter future is going to depend on how frequently you work on the action steps that will get you there. The bright future is going to be your magnet, but you will be challenged by how much your mind wants to drift. I love this Walt Whitman quote: "Progressively minimize the magnitude of our veering to one side or the other of the star by which we steer, whose pathway to us is delicately reflected on the sea of life." Basically, like I said, we all tend to be prone to drift, and we can kind of veer all over the place while we're trying to get to where we go. So that really important attention management system, our compass, is going to act like bumpers. It's going to be the walls that help to minimize our drift and keep us more on course. Less wasted energy means more energy for what is actually important. There are only 4 decisions that really matter. People. The people in your life, and understanding the ones you choose to be with and the ones you are interacting with by circumstance. Strategy. That's the vision. That's the 1%. Process is the 99% of alignment. And money. Whether we like it or not, money is the accepted form of exchange. It's always been interesting to me that mankind created the concept of time and the concept of money, and then in so many ways we turned around and made ourselves slaves to both. So it's important, again, to see what's really important to us and make sure that we're prioritizing what we actually want in our lives, not just trying to keep up with the Joneses. In this, we're really going to dive into process. Because once we've identified the who we want to do things with and for, who we want to do them for, and the what we want to accomplish, now we need to create a process to build the life we want. Process creates leverage, and leverage is key. When we talk about process, there are 3 disciplines: priorities, rhythms, and metrics. To-do list systems are priority systems, but most of them are urgency-based systems, not importance-based systems. We need to balance the urgent with the important by balancing the day-to-day tasks with time for what matters. Rhythms are the frequency of how you engage with this stuff. Is it time blocking? Is it daily, weekly? Without rhythms, the important priorities never get done. And metrics are numbers without a story. that tell you if you are doing it and how you are doing it. When I say numbers without a story, let's say I told you you have to make 10 calls a week. At the end of the week, you've made 10, you're going to tell me, yep, I made my 10 calls. But interestingly, if you made less than that, you're probably going to want to give me a story of why you only got 7 calls in or 8 calls in or whatever. Metrics don't care about your story. They just want to know the number. And it's the way you're going to see if you got it done or not. Metrics are your quality control to keep you on task. Metrics actually predict the future performance. Let's say that you had a goal that you wanted to bench press 200 pounds, but right now you can only bench press 45. Well, you're going to need to set that up so that you have a plan in place. What's it going to be to reach your goal? It's probably going to be a certain number of times you have to work out in a week, and how much you're going to try to increase how much you can bench press each time. Those are metrics. Those are something you need to dial in for yourself. If one of your goals was to work out at least 4 days a week, and when you hit where you should be bench pressing 200 pounds and you aren't, if you look back at where you're tracking your metrics and see that you virtually never managed to make 4 days a week, then you know the problem of why you didn't get there. But the metrics are going to keep you on track. They're going to be something you can check in with regularly so that you can see if you're on track or not. You can predict the future by what you're measuring right now. If your metric is getting tasks crossed off of your list each day, then your future is going to be clearing tasks. Now, Deming was kind of the father of systems and processes. He came up with a system that the US rejected, and he went to Japan, who loved his idea. And within a few years, Toyota became the powerhouse for auto manufacturing. Deming found that 94% of problems are process-based, and only 6% are people-based, which is interesting. What do we usually do when things aren't going right in our lives? Most of us start playing the blame game of either ourselves or other people. But if we really look at it, 94% of the time, it's actually a process that needs correcting. You aren't a bad time manager, you just need a good process. Now, mostly what we're looking at in here is the attitudes and behaviors that are going to lead to results. But you kind of have to look here at perhaps there are things farther back that are affecting those. So if I'm thinking, I need to make a certain number of calls, and I know that I have the skills I need to do that. I know how to dial a phone. I know I've mapped out what I'm going to say on the call, all of those kinds of things. And my mindset, my attitude, I know how important it is because I've already recognized it as something that I desperately have to do in order to reach my goals. If I keep finding out on my metric that I'm never filling in actually making the calls, what I might have to do is dig back a little farther to find out that why. Perhaps it's a belief back there that people don't want to talk to me or whatever it happens to be. You have to dive back in there to see until you can kind of remove that. It's what's holding you back. So there's an expression that only action can overcome addiction. Sometimes if you recognize the belief that's holding you back, and there's only so much you can do to change that belief other than go ahead and do it and find out if that holds true or not. Once you power through and make that call and have a great conversation with somebody, and you might come back and realize that that's going to be what most helps you. So this is a little hack that you can use at this point. If you know you need to do something and you aren't doing it and you've scheduled the time to do it, Mel Robbins actually had her 5-second rule. Once you've decided you have to do something, you just start counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you go do it. And it can be that really great thing that gets the action you need in order to start powering through. Now again, one thing about these systems are important because ultimately you have to have those metrics to see if you're getting the result. If the result's not there, start looking backwards at what else could have been done. On a camera, you adjust the aperture to change the focus. If you think about your focus as a camera, your tightest focus is a day. In this system, I manage tasks by day. I manage strategies by week, month, quarter, year, and 3-year. You can't manage strategy during the day. The day, as we all know, often becomes constantly managing tasks that are coming up. But if you've done a good job with your strategy, then you can make sure that you have tasks that will keep you on track. Most people overestimate what they can achieve in a year and underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. Now, 10 years is a little far out to go planning, so we like to break things down into 3 years as being our longest range. So when you look over your sheet of what you want your brighter future to look at, think about 3 years from now. And then we're going to break it down into 1 year from now. I want you to keep something in mind as you're creating a plan. If you were determined to drill a well to hit water, are you going to be better off drilling in a couple spots and going deep, or digging in 25 spots and only going down 5 feet? That's the thing you have to keep in mind here. When you have that brighter future in mind, you can only do so many things at one time. So if you think about drilling 2 deep wells, then you can really get somewhere, and then that starts compounding on itself. You only have so much time in a year. So if you achieve 2 big goals, i.e. 2 deep wells, in that year, and then 2 more the next year, and so on and so forth, you will be in a vastly different place 3 to 5 years from now, versus what most of us are doing, which is trying to fit everything in now, which means nothing's actually getting done, and we stay stuck where we are. Your 2 deep wells for the year are going to be pretty broad, because then they're going to be broken down further in the next steps. So we've taken our 3-year brighter future and we've broken it down into a year. Now it's time to break it down into quarters, then weeks, then days. When we do it this way, we can have the broad aperture of our brighter future and the focused aperture of what we're doing now to get there. When I mentioned earlier about bench pressing 200 pounds, maybe the year goal is to compete in a weightlifting competition. The bench press goal might be a quarter goal. Looking at what you want to accomplish by the end of the year, what can you do right now, this quarter, over the next 3 months to get you there? Now, I love the quarter. It's only 3 months, and so it's a great time. It's just enough time to really see if whatever you are working on, whatever metrics you've established, do seem to be getting you in the right direction. Or if at the end of the quarter you go, wow, I think I'm way off base here, it's a great time to be able to pivot before you've gotten an entire year down the road or something like that. Now, during this quarter, when you have those big ideas, there's a really good chance that all of a sudden you're going to want to get distracted by something. Oh, but maybe I should be working on this because suddenly something new came into my focus. What I would highly recommend you do is have a little section in wherever you're doing your planning called parking lot. Put that idea there. It's only 3 months that you have to wait, depending on how far into your quarter you are. Just wait. See how your quarter mapped out with those 2 deep wells that you plan on digging. And then at the end, when you're reviewing how it was, maybe now is the time to add in that new thing that you're thinking might be your perfect how to get to the next place in my business, or whatever it is in your personal life goal, or whatever goal you're doing. Now we break it down again, and this time it's the month. What specific steps that are actionable and measurable to dig those 2 deep wells. Put numbers to what you will have accomplished by the end of the month. So again, your metrics are going to keep you on track. Now you're down to week, which is your rhythm. A study was done where they discovered that people who start their Monday with a planning session for their week got 54% more done than people who didn't take that time. Set up a weekly planning session with yourself and be sure to stick to it. This is the time to pull back the aperture and think about your 3-year, 1-year, quarter, and monthly goals. as you block out your priorities for the week. This is what I want, and this is what I can do this week to get there. If, when you did your monthly plan, you decide that you reach your goals, you would need to work out 5 times a week, then you need to be sure that you're scheduling that when you're doing your weekly planning. A mini planning session at the start of every day is a great help to make sure you stay on track. If you find that you're never finding time in your schedule to work on your deep well, then it's time to go back to the drawing board and revisit your priorities. You only have 4,000 weeks. What do you need to cut from your schedule to get the important things done? So we're going to revisit this. Remember, information and knowledge only become wisdom when you take action and put them into practice. What you've done every day has gotten you to where you are now. If you want that to change, then you need to take different action. It's important to get the people around you involved. Once you know your priorities and what you can truly do now to dig your deep well, you need to let those you love know your boundaries. As we talk about, we're all prone to drift. So you need an operating system as your compass to keep your attention on your brighter future. I have a great attention management tool I'm happy to share with you. If you'd like a copy, reach out. And then going back to this, if there's something you want to accomplish, what are the top 2 priorities to get it done? What is going to be the rhythm of your interaction with those priorities? And what metrics are you going to use to see how those are going? These 3 things working together are what makes the magic. As you meet goals, you'll get more and more excited to stay on your plan. Even though your 3-year brighter future should be exciting, as you start this for your first week, first quarter, first month, etc., be sure you're being realistic about what you can expect from yourself. As you build and start gaining success, you'll have more and more motivation to stay on task. People tend to have one of 2 superpowers. They're either really big picture and they can see the forest but not the trees, or they're a detailed person who's focused on the bark of the tree. The key is to develop both. Day to day, you're going to be focused on the bark and doing what is needed for that day, but you always want to stay aware of the forest. During any planning session, it's important to see the entire forest and design the rhythms for when you'll be down in the forest. The muscle to develop is to be able to maintain both apertures. Your energy and motivation for tasks are so much higher when you can keep your brighter future in mind as the why you are doing it. I hope this is helpful. Reach out if you want additional planning resources.